How come most startups fail, even when we have more tactics and strategies than ever before? Join the bedside chat of an entrepreneurial couple as they share what it takes to create a business with ease and in flow.
Hello everybody, welcome back to another Biz in Flow bedside chat. I'm Natasha Koo.
And I'm Jachym.
And today is supposed to be a follow-up of yesterday.
That's right, about fulfillment. Do you want to talk about that?
I shared a great deal about where I was stuck and what I tried to do, No,
I'm just asking if that's the topic you want to talk about today, or if you want to push it back a day.
No, let's give people what we promised.
Okay. You are a very good podcast host who is keeping up their word.
So anyways, tell me about what fulfillment means to you. Because for a lot of people, when someone feels unfulfilled, they're like, well, my job's not giving me it. You know, my life's not giving it to me. My spouse or my family or my relationships aren't making me nice and fuzzy and content at the end of the day. So, I don't know, just that's what I hear a lot of people wanting to get out of situations and to find the right thing to do to feel fulfilled, right? To find a direction, a purpose, or something like that. Is that how you experience fulfillment?
Well, it's an interesting topic. And here's why I think it's an interesting topic. Because in one way, you can experience fulfillment in each moment, really. Because it's a feeling. It's a feeling that can come and that can go. And you can do your dream job and you can have days where you feel absolutely fulfilled and blessed and grateful. And you can have days where you don't feel that way, or moments or hours or whatever it is. And consequently, if it was the job, that would be staying all the time, but that's just not how it works. And so looking for the outside for fulfillment, I think, is looking in the wrong direction. Having said that, though, I do believe that following what feels right to you, following what you feel drawn to, is a great way of living, and also, I don't want to say find fulfillment, because that can be a bit of a trap, in the sense of, oh yes, I gotta write the thing so I can find fulfillment. No, you can find fulfillment now. It's not something that is in the future, far away from you. That is something that is available to you now, in the moment. However, I do believe that you as a human being have unique gifts, and you have a unique way of interacting with the world. And so the so-called purpose really kind of just comes from you doing what you are designed to do, really. So for some people, they absolutely love accounting, and that's their thing, and they wouldn't change that for anything. And that's fantastic. And for other people, they're chefs, or they're pianists, or they're coaches, or they're pilots, or they're astronauts, or they are bankers. There's all those different kind of things, and every person feels drawn to some of those things because that's where they kind of naturally excel at, where they're thriving at. And so I think that is something that is natural. But if it can be confused that I can only ever feel okay when I am doing what I'm designed to do, and that's just not quite right. Do you know what I'm saying?
But the problem is, I don't know if it's a problem, but what many people identify as a problem is that they don't have the fulfillment in the moment. They don't feel fulfilled. So what makes them feel that way? Like, how did it become that way? If there is fulfillment in every moment and say it's possible, but how come they don't feel it in their life?
Usually it's because they're at war with themselves. I mean, I don't know, that might be something that can change from person to person, but what I've seen working with people is that people are at constant disagreement with what is in this moment, with reality, and they are at war with themselves, meaning what I mean by that is that they have repetitive thoughts about either judging themselves or replaying the past, or projecting into the future, or arguing with that person in their head, in their imagination, and they're so wrapped up in disagreement, in resistance. Really, I think in the end it boils down to resistance, that we are resisting, and when we're resisting, well, you're not going to be in fulfillment. You can't be. How can you feel fulfilled and be in complete resistance to what is? It just doesn't work that way.
I was thinking for a moment there, when you started answering my question, I was thinking, well, maybe people don't feel fulfilled when they feel like they're not living their full potential.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I feel suppressed, or I feel like I can't be me, or I'm not saying to completely blame the environment, but to pretty much say that I am limited. There's more that I can do, and I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I don't feel fulfilled. Because a lot of people find themselves in that kind of position, right? Like, I know there's more. I know I have more potential, but I'm not living that. Either I'm kind of told by an authority figure or something, that you really depend on for a living, let's say. You just can't go out of line and just do whatever you want and be your full potential and just, I guess, act out of line, or in a way that people don't appreciate. And I was thinking, well, maybe that's where the sense of not being fulfilled comes from. It's when I feel like, oh, I'm made smaller than I really am, right? Then I gave it some thought, and when you described to me where you think that unfulfillment comes from, I realized that it doesn't have to do with that, what I just described, that sense of, oh, I'm made smaller, I'm not allowed to, this environment doesn't give me the chance to be fully me, and things like that. Because the person who came to mind was Nelson Mandela. He was completely in an environment where he really wasn't allowed to be fully him. Can you say someone is in their full potential in prison? Like, can you say that? You can pretty much say that you're suppressed. You're limited in every single way on purpose, right? And you can't, like, in the way that I just described just now, some people might feel like, oh, my relationship's a prison, my work is a prison. But he was literally in a prison and had much more restriction on his life than probably most of the listeners. I don't know, maybe someone is worse off than Nelson Mandela in a prison. Maybe not. But most of us listening, we're better off, right? But I know that he had a sense of freedom, and just by how he was preparing and all that he was planning, and was he also writing at that point? I'm not sure if it was all in his head or if he just wrote it down on paper, but he was getting ready, and he was dreaming, he was doing, and of course he changed the dynamics within the prison and everything like that. But I think that he in a way, he was living his full potential even in prison.
Yeah, I mean, the whole sentence of living your full potential or not. Well, what does that exactly mean? Like, for me, it almost sounds like, okay, so I have this picture of myself doing X, Y, Z, and that means I'm, living my full potential. Or I am judging what I'm doing is not enough. It just looks to me like it's just a head game, really, more than anything else. Because, okay, so you could say, well, Nelson Mandela is like, I'm not living to my full potential because I'm in prison, yet he changed the full prison dynamics.
Exactly.
If he's stuck in his head thinking, I'm not living my full potential because I'm in prison, I can't live my full potential, what is he going to do? Nothing.
Exactly.
Absolutely nothing. So I think this whole full potential thing is a bit of a slippery slope, because it really looks to me like it's much more kind of a mind game rather than an actual thing. Sure, you in the sense there can be moments where you have talents and skills that are unused. However, you can find an outlet that you can change that, you can do something about it if you wish to do so. And just because you have a talent and a skill, by the way, doesn't mean that you have to put them to use.
Mm-hmm. Or someone told you that, you better not waste it, or you spent all these years in training or learning, and you can't put it to waste, right? And that's why some people find it really difficult to reinvent themselves. It's like, well, who am I if I leave these skills behind? If I let go of this really prestigious or just like valuable part of me that has become something over time, right?
Yeah, but it's just a skill, and you can be great at something, and you may decide to just drop it, and that's fine. Doesn't mean you have not lived your full potential. No, you just decide not to do a certain skill. So, don't get hung up about this stuff too much, really, in my view. And I think what you said is really crucial, because I believe that there's lots of people who are more imprisoned, walking around the earth completely free in their sense of movement and all of that, yet they are in a bigger prison than some prisoners like Nelson Mandela or some other prisoners who had some insights or realization, and they are self-realized in that sense. So
it doesn't actually have to do with what's inflicted upon you.
No.
Right? Because those are legit rules and things inflicted on a person to restrict them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, he found his own sense of freedom.
Yeah. And there's other examples. I just recently heard of an example of some person in prison called Frank, apparently. And this guy is more at peace than 99% or more, 99.999% of the population walking the earth. He's in prison. So we always come back to the same point, and that is we take out of the equation us and our mind and what's happening within us. And so we're always searching. We're searching on the outside. We're trying to change the circumstance. We're trying to adapt people. We're trying to control people. We're trying to control ourselves. We're trying to blame ourselves. We're trying to do all those different things just to find what we're looking for. And we innocently are looking on the outside while it's not out there. It simply isn't out there. And look, you can drop your key somewhere in the dark, and then you can go look in the light, under a street lamp where your keys are. You're not going to find the keys where the light is. You're going to find them where you dropped them. So yes, you can keep insisting on looking on the outside. You can keep insisting on changing all those things around in your life so you can finally feel okay. And you might feel okay for a bit, and then it starts all over again. The cycle starts all over again. So just stop for a moment. Just stop. And maybe give yourself a try to do something that you've never done, rather than just repeating the same cycle.
All these prison stories made me think of another one. They're so great. It's actually from the retreat we attended with Jan and Chipman. Yeah. It's a Canadian couple who were students of Sydney Bank. In case anyone knows Sid or has heard of Sydney Banks and kind of want to know who we're exactly talking about. So this couple, they worked with female prisoners, didn't they?
Yeah.
Within the States, or was it in Canada?
And at the beginning, it was just something so new to the woman, because they were used to this program, that self-development program, and just all these things they had to go through just because they had to attend kind of these courses and these self-development things. But this couple came in, and they really accepted the woman as they are. They said, we're not really here to change you. We're not here to develop you. And that was the beginning. And of course it took hard work and quite a bit of time. But
these women, although I think many of them stayed, didn't they, throughout the course of the work with the woman. I mean, the majority of them like were there the whole time, right? So no one left, and it wasn't like some people even were sentenced to death, I imagine. I think at some point she said. But how they felt, how they lived, their sense, I even want to say, of fulfillment, of just happiness, also changed just by listening and being with Jan and Chip. And nothing happened on the outside. It wasn't like they were bringing in change so that the guards or how things were run was completely shifted. No, they were only working with the female prisoners. And even the guards were quite stern, weren't they? They thought it was quite a hopeless bunch. And the whole atmosphere was really dire. So even going in, it wasn't kind of the best situation that Jan and Chip kind of wanted to facilitate change. But it really happened. And they shared with us how, in the end, the guards and the people who were working in the prison were actually going and asking these female inmates for help, for like life advice. And that's incredible. Just completely shifted the dynamics in the end. And it just goes to show again that nothing changed from the outside. The woman couldn't change much. I mean, the rules that were inflicted upon them, the time of their sentence, there's not much they could do on the outside to fix or to try to, change the circumstance. There wasn't much wiggle room at all when you were this female prisoner. But somehow their experience changed. And how they enjoyed their life within the prison also changed.
Absolutely.
So in some ways, it's actually really magical, what we're touching on today. Fulfillment is just a word that we kind of throw around and we try to label as a feeling that we have, hopefully more often than not. But all the examples that we described, it means that anyone in any situation can access it. And so many of us forget that. We really get lost in trying to fix everything, that we really forget that it's accessible to us all the time. It doesn't matter in how terrible a situation you find yourself. Like, it's incredible to hear these stories of just people in these situations and able to turn their life around and experience everything differently. Just kind of from this magical place, this place from within them. It's real.
And by the way, just because you experience that or, you stop looking outside or whatever, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be 24/7 blissed out and in fulfillment and all of that. It is much more that you start to experience it more and more often, and that you can have it in any kind of situations, whether you're on a walk or whether you're in bed or whether you're at your computer or whatever, that those things just kind of come up more because your resistance and your constant judgment of your inner states and where you're at in life have subsided, really. And look, I'm completely aware that what we're sharing is going against many things that are out there. It is against, the kind of general self-improvement thing. It's against lots of what coaches are teaching or doing, which is, certain techniques and methods and all of that, to get you into the place of fulfillment. And look, if you feel drawn to those things, go ahead and try them out. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. It's just my experience that when it comes to your internal world and to your internal experiences, letting go of wanting to be in a certain place, letting go of pursuing all of those things and obsessing over yourself, when that just stops, even just for 1 second, you get a glimpse of what's possible. I guess one really important point here is that, which is underpinning everything that we're sharing, and it's very obvious to us now, but might not be obvious to you, is that there's nothing wrong with you. You aren't broken, and there's nothing wrong with where you're at in life right now. Knowing that there's nothing wrong with you, you aren't broken, is so vital. Because if we are running around thinking, oh, maybe there's something wrong with me because I've done everything that society tells me, I've gotten the nice car, I've gotten the good career, I've gotten the good partner, I've gotten the kids, gotten the house and all of that, and I still feel unfulfilled. If you're in this kind of place, well, you just have been looking in the wrong place, that's all. That's really all. And you really have never been broken and never will break, because who you really are just is untouchable. And that's nothing to do with the little character and your personality and all of that you think you are.
Well, I hope that this episode was helpful for anyone looking for more fulfillment, more meaning in your life. Sure, maybe it's not the answer that you want to hear, but I mean, how many times do we need to move from place to place physically, or change from job to job, until we kind of get the point that, change can be good for a little while, and then you kind of go, oh, well, didn't quite do it for me, right? So just as, trying to change the circumstance that you're in again and again sometimes doesn't bring you that, then if that's the case for you, then give what Jachym and I shared today a try.
Yeah. If not, just feel free and go and do all the stuff that you want to do and try it out. And if it doesn't work, then come back to us.
Yeah. And we're not saying, like, there are circumstances that you shouldn't leave because you just do not want to stay in them, like abusive relationships, or a boss who's very, narcissistic or abusive, or just like a terrible work environment. Like, no, make a decision and do what you have to do to change your circumstances if that's what you choose. But we're talking about, that type of just always running away from the current situation or circumstance and thinking the grass is always greener on the other side, in the other country, in the other job, in the other company, in a different relationship, and it just keeps just repeating itself in a way, and that just isn't where fulfillment lies.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's time to sleep.
I believe so too. It's always time to sleep for us, isn't it? It's strange.
So if you enjoyed this episode, I would like to ask you a question, and that is, when have you experienced unexpected fulfillment?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Write us at info@bizinflow.com, and we'll get back to you if you have anything to ask more or add or anything like that, but I'm really curious.
Yes. That'll be very exciting. Hope to hear from you all. Let us know, and if you don't, then tell us and we'll be like, alright.
Alright, take care.